Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site, we have Pat Wilson, Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Economic Development, Tripp Tollison, President and CEO of the Savannah Economic Development Authority, and Tom Boyd, Chief Communications Officer at the Georgia Ports Authority. We're here to discuss investing in the workforce readiness and digital infrastructure to support climate tech, EV manufacturing, and supply chain transformation, of course, with a focus on what the state of Georgia is doing around these initiatives. Gentlemen, it is great to have all of you with us. Before we get into Georgia specifically, I want to kick it off with you, Pat, and discussing the need for reskilling the workforce and how public-private partnerships are helping to execute on that.
Sure, Jill. It's an exciting time, and we have seen what I think is the real reindustrialization of the United States. We've seen manufacturing jobs that are coming to places that have honestly not had investment in generations. And so it's exciting, but it's also a challenge because we're making sure that Georgians and the workers of today can take the jobs of tomorrow. And so as a state, as a university system, as workforce creators, that's something that's exciting because we think we do it better than anybody else.
And what's interesting too is, Tripp, when you think about it, improving the curriculum and also making apprenticeships part of the calculus here, right, is a great incentive as well.
Absolutely, and you see companies doing things differently, and especially when you see one company that's kind of surpassing and doing internships or apprenticeships better than others, people catch on. And what we like to do is kind of take those models and advance them forward so that other people can learn and adapt, and it's worked really well in Savannah.
Yeah, and let's talk about the port system in general, then we'll get into Georgia. You don't typically think of a port as being part of that digital transformation. So I think it's interesting that we're looking at it through a different lens.
Yeah, Jill, so we have over 5 million containers every year, and that really runs on a computer system. So the technology, the data is key to running everything. So a very important part of our play.
Yeah, and I would imagine lessons learned through supply chain challenges during the COVID environment.
Correct.
I mean, you have no choice really but to digitize yourself.
Correct, and that's the key to resiliency in terms of protecting against a cyber attack. It's protecting against supply chain disruption, which we're seeing now a bit, so it's central to our operating system.
And Pat, tell us more how the department is collaborating with educational institutions and industry to build these pipelines to support EV and climate tech companies.
Well, I think it starts with just listening to our companies. Where are you trying to go, and how can we help you get there? We have a training system called Georgia Quick Start. We've been doing it since 1968. Quick Start trains the people that we're bringing into these jobs, the jobs of the future, while buildings are being built, while the plant is being constructed, so that the day one that you turn your facility on, that you've got the workforce that you need to do it. And we base that on the curriculum of the company. How do you train your people? We build a whole curriculum through our technical college system that then is the IP of the company. It's us reinvesting in the people, which then benefit the companies.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Tripp, is the technology is moving so quick.
That's right.
The designs, the engineering, the applications, and preparing the local workforce to have the appropriate skills to keep up with the technology that's a big undertaking.
It's a lot. Going back to Pat's point, we do what the companies need us to do. I mean, they're the end users, and so if a company tells us that they are deficient in this area or we need to do more training in this area, they tell us what is needed. We don't tell them. That's not how we operate in Georgia, and certainly not Savannah. And so we adapt. We adapt quickly, and if we don't, we're dead in the water. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah, and Pat, I'm going to ask you the same question, looking at it through the lens of the port. Are workers, do they have the appropriate tools necessary to upskill, because essentially they're more data technicians than anything else these days?
Right, so what we do is really try to have our software providers do a lot of the training, so they learn hands-on, and it takes time to learn that. And then plus we use a lot of simulators in terms of we have over 250 cranes running all these containers in Savannah, so it takes a lot of experience and time to get to be effective at what some of these jobs require.
Yeah, and what's the long-term workforce strategy here, Pat?
Well, it depends on the company,
right,
and depends on the sector, but our goal is ultimately to keep Georgia's academic talent at home. make sure that kids have the skills that they need in order to stay in their community and live a life. You can go to church where you went to church, you can go to the grocery store and live near your parents, or if you want to move to Atlanta and be part of the technology revolution there, we're keeping you in Georgia. Ultimately, we're keeping you from moving to Silicon Valley or to Boston, where we've lost kids in the past. It's keeping that academic talent at home, which is generational.
And there's a lot of academic and R&D work going on at Georgia Tech.
That's right.
For example, I mean, it's an exceptional institution.
Georgia Tech is really the backbone of a lot of growth that we've seen in Atlanta, but our university system as a whole, whether University of Georgia, Kennesaw State, Georgia Southern, they all work together, and it's a recognition that as a university system, we're also we're supporting job creators. You're not necessarily producing just the most well-rounded kid with a political science degree, and that's nothing knocking political science. That's me. That's who I was. But we want to make sure that coming out of our university system, that we're supplying the talent needed for the jobs that are coming to Georgia.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean they necessarily can't pivot
Of
as
course.
the technology
Yeah.
evolves as well.
And you hope that they can pivot
Right.
and continue to grow.
Right, and to have the resources to do that
That's
is,
right.
is certainly encouraging. It's not, we won't be talking about, oh, AI is taking my job. What are we going to be talking about 10, 15 years from now?
That's right.
Understanding what we've learned through public-private partnerships in the education system, such as Georgia is learning about. But Tripp, the Hyundai mega plant in Savannah, help me wrap my head around this. I mean, that is, why is that such a game changer?
You know, the fact that Hyundai chose our region to build this state-of-the-art, and I would argue probably one of the most state-of-the-art automotive projects ever in the history of the world, $7.6 billion worth of investment, and when you throw in all the suppliers, 17,000 jobs, it is truly a transformational project. And not only that, they built the thing 12 million, 13 million square feet in 14 to 15 months. And so they're already rolling cars off the line. They've got capacity to do 7 lines. So they're building the Ioniq 5, the Ioniq 9 right now. It's a massive game changer, and it's been an awesome experience.
Do you know roughly how many people are employed?
Right now we have about 1,400, and as they ramp up, they'll eventually get to 8,500 at the main facility. And they're also building a battery plant as well that'll be ready by the end of the year, first quarter of next year. But all in all, it's truly an amazing project.
Yeah, no, it certainly is, and I'm fascinated about the port system here. What types of partnerships, who are you working with to help transform the workforce? Give us some examples.
So, we're working with local community leaders to really try to get employment in the local communities, all the port neighborhoods. So we show a career into the port with high-paying jobs. Some of these crane operators make very good money. But it's not just jobs, it's really careers. So they can pivot into a technical activity. They can pivot into running a crane unit. So it really comes down to what they would like to do. But we have 2 high-growth ports in Georgia. So they can specialize in Brunswick, down handling a lot of the auto imports and exports, or the container business in Savannah.
And that's the #1 U.S. auto part. Is
correct. So that's #1 in the nation now.
Yeah. How much goes through that port every day? Or help us contextualize what that is.
So, well, first of all, in Brunswick, it's really just roll-on, roll-off. So it's all the cars and the heavy machinery there. That's probably 400 ships a year that come in there. Now in Savannah, that's the bigger ports. 90% of our business is in Savannah with containers. That's 35 ships a week, and that's 42 trains a week. So it's quite significant in terms of activity. 7,000, actually 14,000 truck moves a day.
Yeah. Well, Pat, I think Tom brings up an excellent point that these are well-paying jobs or salary-paying jobs. At the end of the day, that goes back into the local economic ecosystem as well.
That's right. I mean, if you're looking at a payroll for a plant like Hyundai, you're talking about $500 million a year in payroll for this facility. And if you then put that out over the entire region, that salary is not something that stays in somebody's pocket. That's paying your mortgage, that's paying your car payment, that's paying for your son's Little League baseball fees. That money trickles out across the entire region and changes lives generationally. And so these well-paying jobs, great benefits. Again, this is exactly why states are in economic development, why communities care, because this is the long-term health of not only the family that has that job, but the community itself.
Yeah. Well, I've done a number of segments, and they seem to all coincide that they're Southeast U.S. What is the region doing right? What's more attractive about it? Or, whether it's demographics, the weather. Why do you think
Yeah, you know,
the region's outperforming?
if you go back, the South was hungry for jobs. We went through a major transition when the textile industry moved. Where I grew up was a textile community that had unbelievably high unemployment. And so the South went through a transition, and whether we've been Democrat or Republican, we've been pro-business. And we created an environment by which companies can be successful. Ultimately, the success of that company leads to the success of the community and the citizens in Georgia. Yeah. And so by and large, competition makes us better, and the southeastern states have done really good job.
There's such an influx too.
Oh yeah.
COVID as well to the south.
People don't realize for the first time in U.S. history last year, the GDP in the southeastern part of the United States surpassed New England, northeastern part. And that's something to be pretty proud of, not just for Georgia, but Georgia essentially is in the center of it all. But to Pat's point, there's just been an incredible 20-year transformation in the Southeast. Certainly COVID and other things have drawn more and more people to the Southeast, but it's really thriving, and it's not just Savannah, it's all over.
Right, which that also means that there's more infrastructure projects to support the population. So it's kind of this perpetuous cycle, and putting money and skill sets back into the local ecosystem.
You bet. So, I mean, to Trip and Pat's point, the Southeast, high growth, affordable living, high quality of life. So, what we're doing right now is $4.2 billion in the next 10 years to improve the port and keep growing it for the future. So by early 2030s, that port will be the same size in terms of capacity as New York and New Jersey.
Wow. I mean, I live, in New Jersey, in the port of Newark. It's always busy there, let's say that. When you think 2030 and some of the EV mandates, autonomous mandates and so forth, we're 4.5 years out. And they're pretty aggressive mandates. I mean, what are your thoughts as you look forward?
I mean, the interest is consistent for EVs. I think it's just a matter of timing and, market readiness and charging infrastructure. I think Pat has some interesting points in terms of how we use the charging infrastructure coming together. But, when you went to see all the auto manufacturers, I mean, you may want to.
Yeah, it really
climate
does.
tech also fits in that question as well.
Yeah, of course. We're seeing. If you read just the paper, you would think from the headlines that the automotive industry, the EV transition is in decline. We all know that the numbers are not that. It is going up year over year. People are buying more EVs. And the reason that we focused on it was because that's what the companies wanted to do. And whether you were talking to Porsche or Mercedes or Kia or Hyundai, they all were making that transition. And so, if you look into the future, clean tech, EV, these are the jobs of the future. And as Wayne Gretzky said, we skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. That's where we focused. And that's why we have been really laser focused on recruiting EV companies, clean tech companies, the jobs of the future.
Yeah, which is interesting, Trip, because younger demographics really align with what's happening in EV and climate. Part of their values are associated with that. And that certainly is where the puck is going.
That's right. And if you look at the average age of the folks that live in the Savannah area, it's roughly 36 years old. And we're seeing more and more young people come to our area, and we want the jobs for the young people. We want them to stay. We want the people that graduate from the high schools in Savannah, like Pat's saying earlier, to go to college and come back. And I think we've got a good story to tell.
I think it's also attractive to get people outside of Georgia to come visit the state as well. Like I said, climate tech is something that they align their values with. And even deciding where they want to work, those values do coincide with their job choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly does.
And Tom, you got a great story with the hydrogen work that you guys are doing on the port too. I mean, that's
right. So the Hyundai Meta plant is using hydrogen-powered trucks to take their containers from Savannah, 30 minutes to their Meta plant, and that shuttle service every day is all part of a climate tech strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Green logistics.
Awesome.
It's amazing. They make the trucks. They're using that to prove that hydrogen truly can be part of that green logistics story.
We're building a hydrogen production plant now in the Savannah region.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody asked me 5 years ago if we were going to build a hydrogen production facility in Savannah, I would have said, you've lost your mind.
Well, you know what though, but it is common sense, or it's logical, because there's such a strain, there's such demand on resources because of AI and these newer technologies. They just require so much power. You have to look at alternative sources. It can't be just electric. It can't just be natural gas or hydrogen or nuclear. And you're hearing nuclear making more headway and a comeback as well for those reasons. The demand is huge.
People don't realize that Georgia built the first 2 nuclear reactors for the first time in 30 years anywhere in the United States. And those are online now and producing incredible power.
Yeah, I mean, you have to prioritize how to satisfy that demand.
That's right.
Yeah.
The day. All right, appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on
Jill,
Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.